Okay, so you're probably all wondering, what am I doing down there? So you guys have seen that before. Those are called cat and cows, right? And it's a great exercise to increase your pelvis mobility, right? To be able to go from a posterior to an anterior position. It's supposed to help with low back issues and just in general, more hip mobility. And that is so important in the golf swing. So I've got my Swing 3D system suited up today. And we're going to talk a little bit about how doing something like that and being able to move your pelvis better is going to help you hit the ball longer and straighter. So you see on the screen here, I've got a little arrow pointing out there. And when my pelvis is relatively level to the ground or my belt line is level, you can see it's near a 0 number. And as I bend forward from my waist, that increases down to a negative, say, 33 in that example. Go back up, right? It's a little more posterior, and then into full posterior is this way. The key is the best players in the world, the ones that are hitting it the longest and the farthest, they know how to move their pelvis in a way that generates the most consistency and the most power. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. So a couple things that I'm seeing a lot of, there's a lot of people teaching that you should have your pelvis like this at address, okay? And to be honest with you, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. We need to have a slight bit of anterior tilt. So in this instance right here, I'm down, say, right in the high 20s in terms of having some anterior tilt. The reason why that's important, as we go to make our backswing, if I stay in that anterior tilt like I'm doing here, you can see I don't have a very big backswing. I need to lose some of that angle or go into a slight posterior position, right? My pelvis is thrusting forward slightly to be able to increase my range of motion in the backswing, okay? So what's actually happening there, I'm starting here, and there's a slight movement this way with my pelvis to get up to the top. That gives me a bigger range of motion. Now stay with me, this is where it gets more important. In order to use the ground the best, what we see the best players in the world doing, they move from slight posterior out here into a deeper anterior into the downswing. And usually this is about the deepest position in terms of just having the most anterior tilt. So I'm right now at 30 degrees right there, okay? So you can see how having that in the backswing, that slight posterior movement allows for more extension, more rotation, bigger backswing. And then bang, now I can really get down into my downswing, really push my weight down into the ground and get ready to rotate my body and come through powerfully, okay? So once we get into that deepest position, which usually occurs somewhere in this position, from this moment on, it starts to move into posterior again. Now where you need to be careful, it's not like we're coming in and doing this, okay? The pelvis is going from anterior the most to here, okay? And then into slight posterior into impact, but I'm not losing my tush line. I'm not humping the goat, I'm not pushing forward, my pressure's not going towards my toes. And once I get down into that position, so right now I'm about a -9, that's gonna continue all the way up until I eventually get to a almost positive number right there, okay? And that gives me the fullest, most athletic follow through. Right? So some of the pitfalls that I see people get into is they could start with too much anterior, which causes a lot of back pain. And from here, they've got no mobility in their pelvis, so they're pretty locked in. I see a lot of players start too much like this. And from this point on, I'm probably just going to swing my arms up because my pelvis is not set at the right inclination in order to get me angled down at the ball as I go to turn back. Okay, so a couple things to look out for. On into the backswing, a lot of beginners might set up pretty good and they go this way so much that it actually lifts them up and out of their posture. So you can see I've fully lost all my tilt that I started with, okay? The other thing that I see with a lot of better players, especially ones that are trying to keep their spine angle, they set a nice angle at address, but then they stay here on the way back. And that's not losing enough of that angle to really make a full range of motion, okay? So we don't want to do that. Next one is in transition, right? That's a key part of the swing. So let's say we've set up pretty well, we've got up to the top good, but in that first movement, they start to push up and out. So not only are they not pressing their weight down into the ground, increasing that pelvic tilt, which really sets us up to come down powerfully, they start to kind of early release. It's almost like a casting with the body. So now their body is all the way up. That should not happen until farther on in the swing. Some people will call it early extension. There's some of that going on there also. So you want to make sure you get some of those pieces right. You've got a good setup here to start. We've got some negative angle. We lose a little bit. We gain more. And we lose some coming through. That really sets up for a dynamic change in motion. So back to that, I was doing those cat-cows in the beginning, right? Where you're going from anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior. So I've got pretty good pelvis mobility, but I've also know how to contract these muscles in order to make that happen. You don't have to do them on the ground. You could do them up here where you're feeling some of that happen. And the key is these great players, they're doing it at the right time and in the right way in very quick, precise movements. So once you understand what the pelvis is doing, I think you're going to see some of these positions in your golf swing improve. Whether you're the person that's lifting out of your backswing, the one that's lifting out of your downswing, whatever it might be, or you're the person that swings to your follow-through and you're still down here. We need to extend that pelvis up. You can see how much bigger and more full my follow-through gets. So take a look. There's a lot going on down here with your pelvis. Once you start to isolate the proper movements, you're going to see it change every part of your golf swing. If you like this video, there's a lot more content that I have that's free out there. We can deliver it to you in an email. All you need to do is click this link down below, and you'll start getting stuff from us on a consistent basis. Many out there are using it. It's helping their game so much. I know it'll help yours too. I'll see you next video.